there is no doubt EVs are part of the future. How much so depends on the consumer. And the consumer in the United States is already becoming a little disinterested in electric vehicles. Inventory swelling, prices dropping, used electric vehicle prices are also plummeting. Today, we're going to talk about the current state of the EV market in the United States, and it's not looking good for most automakers that are making EVs. Tesla's looking okay as their sales volume continues to grow, but they're in the safe category. There are so many other automakers that are bleeding money over EVs, and their inventories are piling up because no one wants those EVs. If they want an EV, most people just buy a Tesla. But we're going to start at Reuters here. U.S. market struggles with price cuts and rising inventories. So the EV market is growing, but not fast enough during the last quarter of 2023 to prevent unsold EVs from stacking up at automakers' dealerships. And since Tesla doesn't have necessarily a lot of competition, they don't have to cut their prices any more than what they already have here in the United States. In China, that's completely different, where it's just a mad world of price cuts and furthering technology. But it's totally different here in the United States, where people are not as interested in EVs, and they're more expensive, and they're just not as convenient for the average person compared to gas cars. All right, so the current U.S. sales market for EVs is around 7%, and that's grown pretty much every single year these past 5 years. But if automakers continue to pump out models that people aren't buying, it's going to cost the automakers. Absolutely, they're going to be bleeding money even more over EVs. And if production volume outpaces the customer demand, automakers are going to have to cut prices, and that will affect their profit margins, or they could just be reducing the volume on electric vehicles altogether. Then you have like this self-fulfilling prophecy. People aren't buying EVs because they're too expensive, but since they're not buying them, we have to make less of them so we're not losing as much money, but then they're going to be more expensive to create an artificial high demand. So it's not looking good in the near future for EVs, just from what we've seen so far on this article. And more than 90 new models for EVs are coming to the United States by the end of 2026. And the inventory continues to pile up. General Motors, Ford, Hyundai, Toyota have more than 90 days worth of unsold EVs at their stores. The average inventory for normal cars is around 50 to 55 days. So we're nearly double the amount of time EVs are spending at dealerships compared to non-electric or fully battery electric vehicles. At the end of the first half of 2023, there have been more than 92,000 electric vehicles in dealership inventories, more than 3 times that number that we saw in the first half of 2022. For Cadillac and the Lyriq, it looks like they have less than 50 days supply, but everyone kind of makes jokes about the Lyriq. It's very, very low volume. They haven't been able to pump out and meet the demand. GM is all about their Ultium platform, but they're hardly making any Ultium vehicles. Get this. So 36,000 General Motors electric vehicles were delivered in the United States in the first half of 2023. Only about 2,300 were Ultium EVs. And when I think about it, what is it? The Lyriq as well as a Hummer EV? Are those the only Ultium vehicles on sale at this point in time? I think so. And GM has a goal of building 100,000 electric vehicles in North America during the second half of this year. So they're planning to ramp up production maybe threefold of what we saw in the first half of 2023. And if only 2,300 were Ultium EVs, where are the extra 33,000 or so coming from for General Motors? Well, it's the Chevy Bolt, but they killed the Chevy Bolt. And the Chevy Bolt is one of the electric vehicles that are the most desirable on the market outside of Tesla. They're very affordable, they're very practical, super efficient, and it could have been General Motors' car for the masses that it's very affordable, but they're scrapping that for the Equinox EV as well as other EVs. And the plant that they build those cute little Bolt EVs, they're transforming that into a mega full-size pickup truck EV factory. So yeah, $100,000 super heavy boats, everyone. Moving on to Ford. Ford had 86 days worth of F-150 Lightnings and 113 days worth of Mustang Mach-E's sitting in their dealership inventories. That's not looking good. Now that's according to Cox Automotive's inventory figures. Ford says Mach-E inventories are at 83 days supply. just depends on what kind of software and which perspective you're looking from. Either way, 83-day supply, best case scenario for the Mach-E, is still terrible when the average rate of selling is 52 days for any other car. But look how bad the sales look on the Mach-E. 46,000 Mach-E's were built in the first half of 2023. Only 14,000 have been sold so far. And Ford has recently cut prices on the Mach-E in May. If you've been following Ford's financial reports, they're bleeding money with their electric vehicles. Moving on to Volkswagen, things are looking terrible for them. They've had 131 days worth of a ID4 piling up in their inventory. That's nearly 3 times longer it takes them to move an ID4 versus a gas model. And in all of my EV testings I've done on this channel, the ID4 is my least favorite EV. Doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that every single EV I've tested is better than it. Now, Volkswagen says they see strong demand for the ID4, but they don't have enough all-wheel drive versions of the SUV, which the North American market obviously wants in droves. The US-built ID4 still qualify for the $7,500 tax credit. That's not been helping their case, unfortunately. And thanks to Tesla's price cuts, average electric vehicle prices have been going down. So for the second quarter of 2023, the average EV cost is still over $50,000 and $53,000, but it's down nearly 20% from the peak we saw at 66,000 plus in June of 2022. And I kind of see that as the early adopters tax. Anytime there's new technology, you're going to have the people who have a lot of money, who are willing to spend more money on these new products, dive right in. A lot of those buyers have fallen off. They already have an EV. And so in order for them to draw in more customers to these expensive models, they have to reduce prices. But it's still not cheap enough compared to average cars for most people, and there's still too many compromises in the perspective of most people here in the United States. We're heading over to IC cars because we're going to actually look at the used electric vehicle market, and it is collapsing largely due to the Tesla price cuts. So their new vehicles have dropped in price, and that's of course is going to even more strongly affect their used cars and also their competitors' used cars. So used vehicle prices dropped by less than 4% year over year for all vehicles. But look at this, used electric vehicle prices have fallen by nearly 30%. And the free fall keeps accelerating. It was only about 9% drop in January to 17% drop in March and nearly 30% drop in prices on used EVs in June. So we see the car market cooling off a little bit on the used end in 2023. The 1 to 5 year old used car prices are definitely lower than what they were in 2022. When we look at EVs though, the same graph with EVs, look at this red line here in 2023. We keep seeing a drop in used EV prices, with the biggest drops over 30% for the Model 3, over 21% for the Model X, about 20% for the Nissan Leaf, and about 20% for the Model S as well. Then you have a bunch of Land Rover, Range Rovers, which you shouldn't be buying them. You should be leasing them, if anything. Now, Inside EVs has a fun piece here about the best used car deals out on the market. ID4, around $29,000 vehicle. The Polestar 2, which is probably the best deal in this list, especially if you get the dual motor. This thing's fast as hell, 400 plus horsepower, 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. I've tested it multiple times on this thing. I love the way the Polestar 2 drives. Build quality is hit or miss in my observations, but I like the design. I like the speed. It is very cramped in the rear seat though, with the battery tunnel in there. And you have the weird floor dropping around the driver's feet. It's a bit bizarre, but it does drive great. It's a lot of fun to drive, and I like the looks of it. The Audi e-tron, definitely not the best EV I've driven. Handles phenomenally, but there are a lot of quirks about it that I'd rather just get a normal Audi over their electric variants. Haven't driven a Tesla in a long time, so I don't want to comment on them, but their prices are dropping. And even though the new car prices for the EQ series from Mercedes is going up massively, they had big Q2 sales in 2023. Their used car prices are terrible. Check this out. So they start at over $100,000 for the EQS, but you can start seeing them in the mid $60,000 range just a year later. So we see these price drops here, but maybe since we didn't have EQSs on sale in June of 2022 on the used market, more than likely, or just not enough data, they would be by far and away the most price drop EV on this list. So I hate to get a little bit political, and I'm not going to put in my input as much as possible, but I want you guys to know what's going on right here with the government because it affects us all. Over automotive news, we have Toyota and Stellantis. They do not like what's going on with this push from the current administration to boost electric vehicle car sales. This push is too aggressive in their opinion, and it discriminates against plug-in hybrid vehicles. I'm still waiting on my Prius Prime. One day I'll get it in my driveway. I actually saw my first Prius, 5th gen Prius on the road a couple days ago. And it's just like your eyes glued to it. It's so beautiful, so unique. So what is this policy that Toyota and Stellantis want to not go into effect? So this would be for model years 2027 and beyond. There would be new U.S. tailpipe emissions that would be, of course, more stringent. In order to meet these guidelines, the EPA is pretty much recommending and therefore mandating that EV penetration should account for 67% of light-duty new vehicles, so not heavy-duty trucks, but pretty much everything that you and I buy on the new car market, that EVs account for 67% of the cars we see out there. We're at 7% on the market right now, and EV inventory is piling up. Prices are falling. People still don't want to buy them. And if they really want an EV, most of them are buying a Tesla, which is more affordable. There's no dealership experience they have to worry about. And they have the EV supercharging network. And that supercharging network is going to be essentially used by all automakers, probably by the end of this decade. But in the meantime, it's hard to say that Tesla is not the best EV to buy out there. Ford was also one of the others alongside Toyota and Stellantis to want these regulations to be eased between 2027 and 2029. Toyota calls these measures extreme, and they also were on record here. Toyota said this proposal underestimates key challenges, including the scarcity of minerals to make batteries, the fact that these minerals are not mined or refined in the United States, and the inadequate infrastructure and the high cost of battery electric vehicles. Stellantis said the EPA has an overly optimistic expectation for EV market growth and was assuring a perfect transition, while underestimating challenges such as lagging manufacturing capacity and consumer support. Hit the nail on the head there. The first part of this video was all about consumer interest and support for EVs. It's not there for the traditional OEMs. It's really only there for Tesla. Still, here in 2023, yes, Tesla's losing market share just a little bit, but it's still dropping the bucket from their total sales. The Model Y is crushing it. The Model 3 is crushing it. And Stellantis goes on to say, EPA's envisioned EV adoption rate far exceeds what is supported by the policy actions in place and adds significant risk to the automotive industry, who must comply with these standards whether these assumptions hold true or not. On the other hand, encouraging this mandate with more strict regulations, Tesla, on the other hand, urged EPA to move even more aggressively. And I understand why Tesla is saying this, because they are leading the prices right now. They are able to make battery electric vehicles at a price that makes them money, and they don't have to have the dealerships take money out of their own pocket too. So Tesla really being the only EV automaker profitable, of course they want the mandates to be as strict as soon as possible because they want their competitors to bleed out. They don't want them to get their foothold with EVs. They don't want this slow ramp up where Tesla's advantage, this early mover advantage, is nullified. So we're going to have some fun here at the end of this video talking about some of the vehicles in my area within a 200-mile radius. Of course, not Tesla's because they don't show inventories really. It's all online. We're looking at ioniq 5 here. $7,000 price drop. Now, with the ioniq 5 and pretty much most of these EVs on this list, they don't qualify for the EV tax credit. But check out what they're doing. I think I saw this. Yeah, looking at the Volkswagen ID4 Pro, it says $7,500 lease referral. So some of the ID4s don't qualify for the tax credit unless you lease it, because they're probably brought in from overseas, at least some of them. But I could be wrong. Almost all of them could be made in the United States by now. I'm not an expert on ID4s. But going back to the ioniq 5, there are 546 ioniq 5s, if I'm reading this right, within 200 miles. And I'm seeing more ioniq 5s on the road, but this is a huge swelling of inventory for the ioniq 5. And their sales have been okay this year. I think quarter two was better than quarter two of last year for the ioniq 5. But look at this, a $10,000 price drop. So buying ioniq 5 at $37,000, it's probably still not a good buy. And the reason is I'm going to go to lowest price here. The reason why people aren't buying EVs, at least from my perspective, is convenience and technology. Yes, the technology is great, but it's literally outdated seemingly faster than traditional gas cars, because range gets better all the time. Maybe you want to wait to a better model comes out, or maybe you want to wait until it gets cheaper, or maybe you want to wait until it has better range or faster charging, or maybe you want to wait until the infrastructure is better, or like there's all these things that are putting a pause on people buying electric vehicles. But yes, you can get a standard range here, $35,000, get the $7,500 tax rebate built in to the lease, and you probably have a very well leased car here, especially around town, even with this standard range model. It's just crazy that they're over 500 in just a 200-mile radius. Now, also Genesis, their Genesis model sitting on the lot as well. They have a huge inventory as well in terms of day supply for their electric vehicles. Now, I don't get the GV70 electric in my area, even though I reviewed it and loved it, and I reviewed and loved the G80 electric. People aren't buying them though. They're sitting around. So Genesis has 26 in my close area here, and they are all still around $81,000. You'd have to lease it to get the EV tax credit baked in. Also on the eGMP platform, not like the G80, but the ioniq 5 as the EV6. So 288, a pretty high volume here. And the lowest price, we're not seeing quite as low price here compared to the ioniq 5s, which we saw around $37,000. The Kias here are holding strong on their base form here with $46,000. Gorgeous car, I think. It's definitely got Batmobile vibes, especially in black. They look pretty cool. Now, the new Lexus RZ. Well, when I reviewed it, I remember being in California, about ready to drive it that day or the next day, and news was breaking out of Japan about their next generation Lexus platform. And that comes in 2026. So you're going to have people that are waiting for better EVs from Lexus. It's not the RZ is bad. The RZ is one of the best electric vehicles I've driven. If you don't have to charge fast, if you can charge from home, and if you don't need to travel outside of 200 miles of range. It's so smooth. It's quick as heck. It's quiet. And the ride quality is probably the best of any EV I've driven. But, you know, there are only 5. So it seems like the volume here is very, very low on the RZ in my general area. Lexus is big in South Florida, so people are probably buying these as soon as they come into the market. So the RZ seemingly is highly sought after, at least for now, but I think that's going to cool off pretty soon here because people are waiting for the first ever electric Lexus, and I think that will probably be with the next few months, and then inventory will probably start building up, in my opinion. Its little brother, which is the same platform, the ETNG platform, the BZ4X. Check out how expensive these things are still. We're seeing big price drops on ioniq 5 going down to $37,000. But hey, these are slightly cheaper than the Kia EV6, but I can't recommend it over a Kia EV6 unless you just drive around town. Then it's, but the EV6 just has so much better range. So within 200 miles, there are 76 BZ4X, even though some of them are popping up as Solterra, strangely. I don't know what's going on there, but I think the Solterra looks slightly better with the grille. What do you guys think? But they still have the ridiculous plastic fenders. And I'm hearing and I'm getting word from my sources that the BZ4X will be built in the United States probably by the end of 2025 at the Kentucky plant alongside the 3-row crossover. So that will reduce prices and give us the EV tax credit. But until then, these things I think are going to be sitting on lots. All right, one of my favorite electric cars, just from overall aesthetics and fun to drive, the Volvo XC40. Huge price drops are happening on this, guys. I remember driving the C40 recently, which I don't recommend because you can't see out of the back of it, but the XC40 is more practical overall. Anyways, you're seeing a $10,000 price drop on these things, $59,000 to $50,000. Still doesn't qualify for the EV tax credit unless you lease it, but don't know if I would get this over a Lexus RZ. It probably depends on the best deal I could get, which you can get a better deal on this right now, so it's a better buy in my opinion. Similar range as well, and the new ones are more efficient, a 2024 model. So that's why the big price drops on 2023, and that's why people don't want to buy current EVs because seemingly every year there's better advances in technology, and the Volvo XC40 is evidence of that because the 2024 model superior with range, efficiency, rear wheel drive bias, etc. Q4 e-tron, I haven't driven a Q4 e-tron. I've only driven the Q8 e-tron. But gosh, these things are just so darn expensive, $58,000, and these are the lowest price on these guys. So they're not. Let's look at the inventory. They're swelling in inventory. 133 of these guys in my general area. Remember, there's only like 5 Lexus RZs, which is a competitor to this vehicle. And they cost about the same as well. So not looking good for Audi there. And I think Mercedes-Benz is actually outselling Audi in America for electric vehicles, even though Audi had a huge head start coming out, what was it, 2019 with the first e-tron? Looking at the Nissan Ariya, I just reviewed the vehicle. It is probably the best Japanese electric vehicle out there on the market. It still has its quirks, but I like the design of it, especially in the copper color. Ooh, that looks great. The problem is the Ariya is just very expensive, but it does have amazing design, amazing build quality, ride quality's okay on it, but it is so smooth and very, very refined. It's probably the best way to say it. It's very luxury-like. I think it's Infinity quality. Absolutely, if not better. And these are starting to pile up as well. 130 in my area. Let's go ahead and go to the lowest price here. See if they're dropping. Whoa, what is this? $36,000. We're getting to we're getting to ioniq 5 levels here of price drops. $8,000 price drop, and this is on the Engage, which I think might be the front wheel drive base battery pack. Yeah, so only 216 miles of range. So don't know if I would buy that, but it's not a terrible deal compared to what we've seen. And if you look at like the Venture Plus, this guy's is very similar to the Empower Plus that I just drove recently, but a lot cheaper. It has over 300 miles of range. It's not the quickest EV out there, but damn is it smooth. And these cloth seats look actually pretty nice. But I want to bring up a vehicle that's doing the opposite on the market, is that the dealers can't get enough of them. They can't keep them in stock. And that's the same thing for most of Toyota hybrids out there, and probably Honda hybrids as well. Not sure about Hyundai's hybrids, but they are, and Kia's hybrids, they are very, very good. So the Prius here, only 23 in my area of the new Prius. And look at this thing, just so beautiful, more affordable than any EV. And when you look at the efficiency of this car, it's just as cheap to fuel a 60 mile per gallon car in my area, essentially, as it is to fuel it electrically. But check out the Prius Prime. There are 2 in my area within 200 miles, and their markups look $47,000, and also about $4,000 here. So it's just unfortunate that the Prime, which is, in my opinion, plug-in hybrids are the answers for the short term to reduce emissions. If that's the enemy, if CO2 is the enemy, plug-in hybrids are the way to go. They're cheaper, more affordable, and you don't have that range anxiety. You have the ease filling up on the road, and then 40 to 50 miles of EV range in and around town is like going to take up 90% of most people's driving. But if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. Hit the like button. Also, I can't wait to see what you guys have to say below about the current state of the EV market here in the United States. Inventory swelling, prices dropping, people seemingly disinterested unless it's a Tesla. So I got to shut it down. Thank you guys. And also thanks to my paying members. You guys rock. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great day and peace.